Basically, at the Blue Monk on Saturday, March 1st, we were set to do a heavyweight show as it was billed in between three of the town's finest, with Luck One, myself, Mikey Vegas, and about like an hour and some change into the event, when Mikey Vegas went on a few songs into his set, I noticed there were a couple officers in the back, like at the merch table, the bar, and it wasn't too out of place at hip hop shows, in town. And so at first I didn't think too much of it. I was like, oh, okay, checking in and just to make sure. And then a few songs later, I see more officers coming, and then I notice that the fire marshal is walking through the venue with his clicker. And he's with the promoter and venue staff, and they're going in the back room discussing things. And around this time, more officers are filing in. So basically, by the end of Mikey Vegas's set, there was from what I remember being like 5-6 officers in the back of the venue. Then I get upstairs and there's another good 6 or 7 officers just at the very top of the stairs, like lining up, and just a group of people that aren't allowed back in, and everyone's like confused, like what's going on? I paid to get in, understandably frustrated. And they're in effect not really communicating with anyone, and just there. And what I notice is these aren't street officers. These are gang task force, and they're full, tactical gear that they go out to fight crime in, and none of which was at the Blue Monk. And I was very confused, and I talked to only one. I'm like him and Han about like, man, we have to perform in this atmosphere. Meanwhile, they're still lurching menacingly over my merch table, like in the back of the venue and everything. And I'm like, this is not an atmosphere that I want to go to a hip hop show and experience as a fan, let alone as a performer, and let alone subject my fans to this atmosphere. So Luck's set ended right as this conversation happened. And I just went up, basically on this impulse in this very short conversation. And I went up on the stage, I grabbed the mic and just addressed the crowd, That was the gist of what happened that night. If you even follow the story and official statements made in interviews throughout this, the story has changed. Initially, the fire marshal showed up. The fire marshal was in the neighborhood, and they showed up, and he called because he thought they might need backup to clear the room because of overcrowding. Then finally on the air, on the Think Out Loud, he then goes back on that story and says, no, the gang task force had these concerns earlier that day ahead of time and planned on being there. Once there, and as you said, gang activity wasn't a problem in any facet, and it was nothing but a positive event, then it's get the fire marshal in here, look for anything we can do. I think the reason that's happening is it uses a buffer. It uses fire marshal as a buffer between the police department and shutting down a hip hop show. So because they don't want this type of PR, they don't want that. They already have this type of reputation with the community. So their MO, as proven in the past, is, well, we have the power, and we can search through any venue with a fine-tooth comb and find problems, and that's what we're gonna do. And all the while they're doing it, they're pressuring the venue. Take Mikey off the stage. Shut this show down. Do it. And the venue's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. They're like, all right, well, I'm gonna write fines then. And see, that's what it all comes down to, is money. Because if you threaten a venue's ability to make money, well, all right, I'm not going to do hip-hop shows. We've seen this narrative unfold 1,000 times, from the OLCC threatening liquor licenses. You threaten liquor license, you're threatening a business's livelihood. So what are they gonna? Okay, well, I want to do hip hop shows, but I gotta make a living. My kids gotta eat. So this is, the classic MO of using a buffer between, the city, between the police department on technicalities to ultimately shut down hip hop shows and effectively shut down our way to have a positive atmosphere and sustain ourselves in the hip hop community. Pete Simpson, the spokesperson, he said, Gang Task Force knew ahead of time and had concerns ahead of time, and this is why they showed up. So why wasn't a call made? Why wasn't a call made to notify the venue who might not be operating with this same type of information, or the promoter, or even us artists? You know what I mean? I mean that does fall more on the promoter, but even that line of communication between the venue and the promoter to say, hey, we have these concerns. Have you taken any steps? Here's our recommendations. Do you mind if we come through with, a couple officers, check in, and those simple steps would make the world of a difference in building a relationship and working with us, because we all have the same goal. I've said it, before. Their stated goal is we want everyone to be safe. Guess what? So do we. I don't want to get shot, but guess what? That isn't a threat, and it wasn't a threat at this show, and it isn't a threat at 99% of hip hop shows. But this is as they said, well, we have to work on hip hop's perception of the police. Well, you have to work on your perception of hip hop as well. All I'm saying is that if you're operating with this information, there's different ways to communicate it ahead of time that works for everybody, because we want to be safe, you want us to be safe. Let's communicate. Don't come and bombard our hip hop event, or just don't come bombard our event period with Gang Task Force in full regalia lining up at every corner of the venue, staring at everybody menacingly like statues, armed and all these things. Like, we didn't bring the guns in, you guys did, so I just think that if with open dialogue and effectively communicating, if you're operating with this information, things could be done in a much more simple and effective fashion that allows everybody to do their job, from the police department, us, and allows a positive atmosphere for the fans who came out and tried to support something positive and weren't even able to at the end of the night. It is difficult at times to stay passionate about, really wanting to do shows and play this game in a way, in the community. It's for a whole host of factors. At some point, we have to hold ourselves accountable, and the people within the community as well. There has to be accountability on all sides, and we effectively have to police ourselves a little better as well. For the few people that do throw bad shows or let there be overcapacity, or don't get their liquor licenses, and we have to police that, because it affects all of us, as we're seeing, because this very perception of gang activity, when there's absolutely none of the sort being attributed to this type of show, is a reflection of that perception that the community at large at times has with the hip hop community, and with the community in Portland with the hip hop community. So that's the thing, is we have to work on accountability ourselves, because when this is spun, first of all, Pete Simpson, spokesman of the Portland Police Department, would never meet with me if it wasn't for all the press that this is getting. Why would he? This is so that in effect says they're trying to, okay, we gotta nip this in the bud right now, And when the greater public in Portland sees this, we have to understand here that they don't have anything invested in this. This is all perception for them, So the way this is playing out, it is positive in the way that they're starting to see, I think, that this is a problem that's been occurring. The voices are in effect being heard in that manner, So ultimately, we have to just take accountability as well, and there's accountability on all sides. And I don't want to use anyone as a scapegoat, because we have to open up dialogue. They're not going anywhere, as I've said, and we're not going anywhere. The investigation into, police relations with the hip hop community and procedure is, it's not a solution. It's a step, you know. And I'm even skeptical. Like I'm cautiously optimistic in the way that it is a step because it is recognition of a problem. However, it's nothing tangible until steps are actually made to where all sides can benefit and the hip hop community can have these positive outlets to give this art to the people who want to come and appreciate it. I would tell them that as far as the city goes in general, like and the talent involved, the positivity that is promoted in the music, like we're one of the best things that they have, that they could be proud of, you know. And ultimately, we as a hip hop community, we just want to be able to do our music, and we just want to be able to go out and have a positive atmosphere for ourselves as well. We're not looking for trouble. I mean, I think as far as getting involved, it's almost like I said before, we have to take accountability for ourselves, you know? Like, if we're operating with the information that, like we are, that, okay, they're not the most fond of hip hop or we're being targeted, why are we leaving ourselves open then? Let's not leave ourselves open. You know, we have to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to not leave ourselves exposed to that type of situation ever. You know, as I've said before, I don't have the answers. You know, I didn't plan all this out with some grand design of, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna walk off stage and then we're gonna change things. I've kind of been thrust in this position, but now that I'm here, I'm like, well, what can we do tangibly besides saying I'm fed up with this? You know, this sucks. Okay, well, what are we gonna do on our end? You know, because if we're not proactive, ultimately, this attention isn't gonna last forever. You know, there's gonna be a bigger story in a week or two, and people will forget about this. But the difference is we can't forget about this because this is our livelihood. So we actively have to take these steps to ensure that we can continue to do this and make a living for ourselves and give this art to the community. My name is Illmaculate, St. John's, Portland, born and raised. Been rapping since I was 11 years old. Been part of the hip hop community since I was 4 years old.
Yeah, train spotting. You was waiting on me.